Perfect. So those who have done the course multiple years, the swim course is exactly the same. The bike course has changed twice, I believe, and then the run courses remain the same every year. Um, I've done the course every year. We've had pretty much, other than one year where there was some biblical rain, we've had beautiful conditions. It's been sunny, it's been warm, it's been really, really kind of enjoyable the whole experience. Um, so the biggest thing Ollie, myself, and a lot of like other coaches will give you is the swimmer's in a dock. So the dock has been over the last couple of years warming up. Last year it was so warm that the pros actually were able to swim non-wetsuit. And it's not necessarily going to be so warm that the age groupers are able to swim non-wetsuit this year. However, there is that 1%, 2% chance that that does happen. So all I can say is, I know we've still got like 10, 11 days, is don't be shocked as we've got a heat wave coming again next week if all of a sudden that water starts to warm up and it's very close to the legal limit for it to be non-wetsuit. Um, Most of you guys have got tri suits. They're more than fine to swim in without like a swim skin. Those more kind of competitive athletes might want to put a swim skin on top, just to give you that couple of extra seconds, 100. Um, in terms of pre-race, this course they will basically try and get you into your pens pretty early, just to try and get nice and kind of everything needs to be nice and organized. Ironman are very, very good at this. They will get people in the pens based on their swim speed, and this is kind of an honest review of this is that everyone will overseed themselves. So if someone puts themselves at 40 minutes, they're probably going to swim more closer to 45. If someone puts themselves at sub 30, they're more probably like at 35. Everyone tends to overseed by roughly 5 minutes. It's the same at Ironman Wales, it's the same pretty much globally wherever you go these days, is everyone will try and go that little bit in front of what they actually will be able to swim. So bear that in mind, unless you are, I'm just going to admit a couple of people in. Sorry, 1 second. I don't know how to see the room now. Um, yeah, unless you're a bit more of like a new swimmer and a bit more nervous about the whole kind of swim situation, I would advise overseeding yourself slightly because that's what everyone's going to do. Um, but if you are, as I said, if you are new and you're not that fussed about being like the fastest swimmer and being in the quickest pen, then I would almost hang back a little bit because it does thin out. And the fact that it's a rolling start is your time will only start when you cross the timing mat. So getting in the water 10, 15 minutes after the first swimmers get in isn't an issue. It's just about what you feel most comfortable doing, sorry. So just bear that in mind pre-swim. A big thing pre-swim as well is last year it was absolutely boiling hot and everyone was in their wetsuits, like in my opinion, way too early. Um, you need to put your wetsuit on. You probably put your wetsuit on as you leave transition, especially if you're going to put your white bags in the truck. If you can you see my mouse, Ollie? If you can give me like a heads up, can you see my mouse? Maybe. I don't know. I'm going to say yes. So the white bag drop is somewhere around here. Um, this means that everyone will start putting their wetsuits on. Ollie said, yes, I can. Yes, Ollie can see. So the bag drop is roughly here. People will put their wetsuits on. What I recommend is putting your wetsuit on up to your waist and leaving the top half down. If you put it all the way up, you are just going to start getting really hot. And if we do get sun, even if it's 12 to 16 degrees at 6 in the morning, it still will feel super warm in a wetsuit. So yeah, highly recommend not putting your wetsuit up fully until roughly sort of 5, 10 minutes before the start. Anyone who did long course on Friday, it was the exact same situation. You had to get in your pen sort of 20 minutes before. I rocked up with my wetsuit down and was told to put it up, and I kind of slowly put it up, but kind of didn't really want to. And then we had to wait for 10 minutes, and I was absolutely dripping with sweat. And I'm sure lots of people were as well. So just bear that in mind. That's the first tip. And then the second tip as well is if you've got the ability to carry a cold bottle of water, um, preferably a disposable one so that you can either throw it in a bin or give it to someone randomer or an official. Um, that's the biggest tip as well, and that's twofold. One, because you can drink it, it can keep you hydrated, it can cool you down, it can rinse your goggles out. But the biggest thing is 5 minutes before you get in the water, I always recommend people splashing their wetsuit through. So literally just pulling the front of the wetsuit, chucking some water down there. Wetsuits are built to have water inside them. So if you get that water inside the suit, we're not going to be dealing with cold water shock or anything, which is sometimes what we use it for. But in this situation, it's just about getting that water in the suit, feeling the kind of suit sticking where it should stick and kind of feeling a bit of flow. And then that means when you get in the water, the suit should just feel normal. Sometimes if you're completely bone dry and you like kind of walk and run into water or dive into water, the suit hasn't got any water in and it just kind of like, it just almost like compresses your chest and it feels a bit, yeah, I personally don't like that feeling. So that's pre-race. I'll quickly run you through the course now. So it's super simple. I'm just going to move this map out of the way because otherwise my face is covering where I want to draw. So as I said, it's um, rolling starts. So they're roughly like normally 6 people every 6 seconds. It's not a perfect science. They sometimes go a little bit off the cuff, but what they will try and do is get you in gradually and in a way where you have a bit of space. It's nothing worse than feeling congested. This first stretch here is super short. It says, well, 0.25 on that stretch, so 350 meters. But if I'm honest, it feels even shorter than that, especially in open water. They normally have then 2 boys here, not just a single boy. So there's normally 2 boys. So you'll take a left-hander, a second left-hander, and then you'll go to this corner of the dock. Anyone who's done Swansea Sprint will know that's where you exit normally in Swansea Sprint. But we'll actually again go around 2 boys, 1, 2, take a right-hand turn, and then you've got your long straight along the back here. Those who are left-sided breathers, you are in luck because you can just look at the wall and you can kind of reduce your sighting. If you're a right-sided breather like myself, unlucky, you're going to have to sight regularly. But there's boys lining this whole stretch. It's super hard, super easy, sorry, to navigate, and no one should have any issues really. You've got a couple of boys at the far end here that you turn right, and then on the way back, it kind of looks like a diagonal and then a straight. But this whole kind of way back is a bit of an arky kind of shape where you're just like consistently like turning slightly to the right, but kind of just straight, if that makes sense. The exit is right next to where the swim entry is, and both the swim entry and the swim exit are kind of like how do I describe it? They're like plastic kind of ramps. They can be a little bit slippy. They do drop off quickly as well. So getting in, there'll be like 3 or 4 steps into water, and then if you take a fifth or sixth step, you'll probably just fall over. So you kind of just like take a few steps and then kind of like either dive or kind of just start swimming. And on the exit, you kind of will hit nothing, and then all of a sudden your hands will touch plastic, and then you can start getting yourself up. Normally, some really, really good volunteers on that swim exit. I'm not sure exactly which club is doing it this year, but normally some people to help grab your hands, pull you up, and prevent you guys from slipping. But yeah, single loop, 1.9K, water, as I said, should be nice and toasty. It's almost definitely going to be on the edge for the pro race in terms of wetsuit and non-wetsuit. So if it is a wetsuit race for you guys, it's going to be absolutely beautiful conditions. Yeah, Ollie, is there any questions? I don't know how to wait. I'll unmute you, Ollie. Is there any questions about what I've said so far, I guess?
So if you do have any questions, guys, just chuck them in the chat now. There's only one so far, mate.
Okay,
And this
perfect.
is a conversation which I've had with quite a few people. The jellyfish situation.
Yes,
Rumors of jellyfish. Are there jellyfish? What do we do
I
with the
love a good
jellyfish?
jellyfish. Yeah.
Just, but let's put all the rumors to bed. First things first. Are there jellyfish? And if there are, what do we do in that situation?
So uh, I can't 100% guarantee you, but from my experience, every time I've swam in the dock, there's been these really, really small jellyfish. And I say small, they're literally like the size of your palm, if not even smaller than that. Um, I am pretty sure, and again, you can't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure that the ones that we have always get in the dock, they don't sting. And I was having the same conversation with Ollie at the weekend. In Wales, I believe there's something like 16 or 18 different types of jellyfish, and we only really have one or two, if you can't count a random Portuguese man of war, um, that actually sting. So anytime you kind of bump into a jellyfish, especially those who've gone down to Tenby and you've seen the big dome ones, pretty much all of them are completely harmless. And then also on the other side of things, most jellyfish stings are no worse than a little bit of like a an insect sting, so like a wasp sting, bee sting. You're not going to get anything worse than that. And in the dock, again, they're tiny. Like the worst feeling you'll get is like a tingling sensation. And if you're wearing a wetsuit, the only thing that is exposed hands, feet, neck, face. So um, you'd be very unlucky to get stung. And I think sometimes just um, understanding that they're not going to hurt you sometimes puts some of that anxiety to bed. I know the first time I ever did long course weekend, God, back in 2013 or 2014, I swam straight into one of those big dome jellyfish in Tenby, and I absolutely jumped out my skin. To find out after the race that they don't sting. But yeah, I spent 3.8K feeling pretty anxious that day. But
Cool,
yeah.
cool. So hopefully that's covered up the jellyfish situation because loads of people ask me about that all the time. Cool. I got a question here from Neil. In the guide, it says they've made improvements to the swim start. Do you have any ideas of what that may be?
That is an interesting question. I believe that an issue they had last year was potentially the pen situation. So maybe streamlining that whole situation, extending it out, or getting people not to get in the pens too early. That could be one thing they've done. Another thing is, as I said, the plastic ramps can be pretty slippery, so they potentially could have thought of an alternative and lace them with some sort of grip tape or some sort of like carpety kind of thing. I know that that's a big issue at a lot of events is just the actual getting in and out. And again, things like how they carpet the walk in and the exit, like those, on the surface don't seem like big significant things, but in terms of like the athlete experience, I think it goes a long way. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm interested to see as well. I don't think it's going to be anything revolutionary, and I don't think there's not going to be an increase in frequency in terms of getting in the water. If they've completely changed the start protocol, it will be less numbers getting in at once and probably getting swimmers in even slower. So worst case scenario is those that are starting further back, you might start a few minutes later than you would otherwise, which isn't necessarily a bad thing.
Cool. We got another question here from Ben. Any tips on the dive entry and just something practical? Any tips on avoiding goggles moving around, fogging up, coming off, dislodging?
Okay, good question. So I'll hit on goggles fogging up first. Get yourself some anti-fog. Um, Obviously test your goggles in a pool or in the sea or wherever you go from what's or open water swimming first. But buy yourself some anti-fog. I think Aquasphere do some. There's some own brand stuff on like Amazon you can buy. I buy like this spray that's like £6 and it does. I can't remember the name of the company. But literally a couple of squirts of anti-fog in the lens. Give them a wipe around. Leave it for 20 seconds. Splash it with water, and you'll have zero issues with fogging. Um, in terms of goggles coming off and the diving process, what I would always recommend is if you know that that's a potential, is don't go head first on the start. So as I said, it's a ramp and you kind of take 3 or 4 steps down. There's no obligation to then go head first because normally the fact that the goggles hit the water first causes them to like flush and fall off. So if you're worried about that, what I'd almost tell you to do is take a few steps, do somewhat of like a belly flop dive into the water with your kind of head up, and then just get straight into swimming because that's going to mitigate any potential issues, and you're not going to lose or gain anything really by doing a if you've got a swim background and you've got an incredible dive and underwater kick, then crack on. But I
Mm.
think most of us are gonna kind of do some sort of like splashy flop into the water and then get going.
Yeah, I think that's quite good to say. That let's not sweat the small stuff. I know the start can dictate a lot of the rest of the race, but just do something which you're comfortable with. On the topic of goggles, the situation, you don't really want to change your equipment now, really, wetsuits, goggles, whichever it is. Okay. Bear in mind, if you have got what I would say like an open water style goggle, so bigger form, wider off the face, when you hit the water, the form of the goggle, because it comes off your face a little bit, can create a little bit of impact. If you've got swimming goggles, which are the ones which are sat in your eyes, the ones which are like 3D printed, some people have, they're probably not going to come off because the profile is so close to the eyes that you'll be fine. But don't change the equipment yet. Just do it as it is. To save 25 seconds of stressing about what your goggles are doing, just lower yourself in the water. That's probably the best tip we can give you. The next one is from Sid. You had a session with
Can
Sid
I,
down in
Ollie,
Langland.
before you go on to that, I just saw the
Go on.
message from Josh who mentioned about the spare pair of goggles, just as we're on the topic of goggles. Um,
Cool.
I think personally, I 100% will always take two pairs of goggles down to the start. Um, Not necessarily both pairs of goggles in my hands. I normally just start with a pair of goggles with me. But if you've got a supporter, a friend, a family member, whoever it is, if they can carry a pair of goggles in their handbag, their coat, whatever it is. Again, good example at the weekend. I was just about to start and I realized I had the wrong pair of goggles on about 3 or 4 minutes before the start. Luckily, Ollie came down to support me, and I shouted to Ollie, "Get me the other pair of goggles."
Yeah,
And
and it
then,
was, and I'm
yeah,
talking, guys, this was literally 25 seconds before Andy was going into the water. Had his goggles on his face, realized instantly, holy crap, I need a different pair of goggles. And I literally threw them over to him. So it happens to absolutely everyone, but have to just to make
yeah,
sure that nothing goes wrong.
yeah, there's nothing worse than snapping goggles. But as long as your family member or friend is near you, then great. If they're cheap goggles, then if it's 10 quid's worth of goggles, it might, if it makes you feel relaxed, then take two pairs down. If you're just going to leave them by the swim start and say goodbye to them, then if it makes you feel better and more relaxed about it, then 100% take a spare pair.
Cool. Good little bit of equipment tip there. Okay. One from Sid. I can actually answer you here, Sid. Is it quicker to swim by the wall or by the boys? Well, any race you do, you want to keep the course as short as you possibly can. If you can, you want to keep the alignment as straight as you can. If you are, regardless if you're breathing to your left or to your right, it does cater to left-sided breathers because you can just watch the wall, etc., etc. You don't necessarily want to be by the wall though, because that's going to make the course just wider. Ironman do make the course as close to the wall as they can just for safety reasons. But I would always go down a little bit before the race and just have a look at the line. Have a look at how far is between the perfect line and the wall. If you're 20 meters over to the left, you're going to probably swim a lot further than what you normally should do. So just to answer your question, Sid, you want to make the course as small as you can. If we're lucky enough that the course is set up that the buoy perfect alignment is close to the wall, by all means be close to the wall. But if you're just trying to keep things in that straight and narrow, try to keep as close to the buoys as we can. We don't want to be swimming more than 1.2 miles at the end of the day if we can control that. You agree with
Yeah,
that, And?
yeah, no, good, yeah, very good point. And I guess like the beauty of this course is yes, there's a technical aspect to the first part in terms of lots of quick turns. But once we get out into the kind of the meat of the course, which is just kind of like a loop of the outside, it's very difficult to go too far wrong. So, again, I use long course or Ironman Wales as a good example. It's very easy to add on a lot of distance on that course by taking completely the wrong route. On this course, if you go wrong, you're never going to be adding on hundreds of meters. Worst case scenario, you swim 2 kilometers instead of 1.9. But yeah, as Ollie said, if you can take that narrow route and also almost 100% they will have the boys out probably the day before as well. So if you go to rack your bike, have a quick walk across the bridge, have a quick look. That might be more relaxing having a look the day before than on race morning.
Cool. Another question here, and the one of these questions is relating to transitions, but I think you're going to talk about
Yeah, we'll
transitions a
get onto
little bit in a
transition in a
second.
sec. Yeah,
So
yeah.
we'll get onto that. Another question here. As a novice, if it's non-wetsuit, is it usually swim in a tri-suit? I've heard people use neoprene shorts to help the buoyancy, especially for the weaker swimmers. So that's probably a little bit of a two-parter. If there's no wetsuit, what do you wear?
Yeah.
And what would you recommend to wear?
So from a personal experience standpoint, my belief is that if wetsuits are not allowed, then neoprene shorts are also not allowed because they're a wetsuit. Um, they are the same material. So as far as I'm aware, I don't think you can use neoprene shorts. However, that is a super interesting topic because I actually don't 100% know that that's fact. So what I will do is try and find that out for Ollie, and then I'll chuck that in the group chat at some point in the next few days. Um,
Hmm.
but there you go, Mark Barrows sorted us out. Not allowed. Pretty sure that that was
Cheers,
yeah.
Mark. Thank
Cheers,
you,
Mark.
mate. Cool.
Um,
Yep.
but again, I wouldn't go out of your way investing, some skins, a couple of hundred, there you go, neither costly. So you can't, if you,
Yeah. No, I think something to do quite well is just get rid of anything which aids buoyancy. It's
yeah.
probably not going to be up.
So, pretty much everyone will just swim in a tri suit. If you've got access to a swim skin, if you want to, go online and buy one, they're a couple of hundred quid. Um, but, I think I'm pretty sure that the HPV race will be fine in a wetsuit. Ironman prefer age groups in a wetsuit. So I think they'll be hoping for the best. Right, shall we? I got a couple of questions about transition. So like quickly run through the T1 process and
Yeah.
then we'll have a few more questions. This meeting only has another 9.5 minutes on. So
We'll
we'll
make it as
quickly do
quick as we
that.
can.
Yeah, cool. So once you exit the swim down here, there is the option to put trainers on. So there's racks along this stretch here. So you come out, run around the corner, and then there are racks where you can, I think they're yellow bags, I believe. You can put a pair of trainers on. The whole of this stretch, all along here, is along a road, so tarmac, and then you go across the bridge, which is mixed tarmac and kind of like metal grating. Um, it is not the nicest of things to run on in terms of in barefoot. Again, I think this completely goes down to what level you're racing at, how quickly you want to get through transition, and also like, are you sweating 10 seconds here, 10 seconds there? Because the most endurable process, if you're willing to spend 10 seconds, is to put a pair of shoes on. Um, if you are looking for every second and trying to, place in your age group or whatever, then I have ran that stretch every year with no trainers and I've had no kind of issues with my feet. Um, but again, people got slightly dodgy Achilles or, anything kind of they're fearing in terms of their feet. I would, yeah, waste those 10 seconds, chuck a pair of old trainers on with some tri laces and just and get going. Um, once you get over to transition, you'll basically hook a right turn here into your change tent. I think you'll grab the blue bag, you'll get your helmet, you put your bike shoes on if they're not on your bike, bike bib, grab your extra gels, whatever you've got in there, and then you then head out to your racks, grab your bikes, and then bike exit is down this far left-hand corner. From swim exit to bike out, I don't know the exact distance, but it's probably best part of half a kilometer, probably maybe even 600 meters total distance. So it's not a quick transition by any means. Um, but for yeah, I kind of like the process. It works quite nicely. The big thing to worry about in this area, and Ironman have kind of gone on back and forth a couple of times on it, and they still haven't done it, is this car park can have some pretty bad tarmac. The first few years we did it, it was like loose gravel on top of the tarmac, and it absolutely wrecked your feet if you were running barefoot through it. Um, they have talked about carpeting it. I don't think they're going to because of the size of it and the amount of cost that would have. But last year they had resurfaced it and it has, well, from my opinion, it was way better last year. Um, but yeah, other than that, I think if you're putting your bike shoes on in the change tent, you'll have no issues. Just kind of a thing to look out for if you're not putting them on in the tent. Um, Cool. Is there, obviously, I'm aware there's only 6 minutes left of this meeting. So is there any questions people have got about kind of what we've gone through today so far, or about kind of the bike and the sorry, not the bike, the swim and the transition. And then if there is any kind of other questions kind of overarching about the bike and run, I could touch on. However, obviously, we wanted to try and keep this as swim focused as we can. Ollie, don't know where he's gone. There it
Nope, nope. I'm here. I'm here. I'm here.
is.
One other question. Is it a
Cool.
10-minute transition limit? Where is the run from the water to T1? Is that run counted in that 10-minute time frame which you guys did a part of the 10 minutes, that little run?
From memory, I believe so, yes. I know that a couple of years ago, they had an issue with timing and they actually wrongly disqualified a couple of athletes for missing cutoffs in the swim. Um, but I think they rectified that, and I'm pretty sure you get 10 minutes.
Cool. Any other
Uh,
questions, guys? There's another one on here. Notice there's a rule on stack height for trainers. How strict are they with age groupers?
Good question. If so, I've been to a couple of races in pro races and they have checked our shoes. I haven't seen them checking age group shoes. However, at any point, if you cross the finish line, potentially an official there could notice that you're wearing an illegal shoe and disqualify you as a result. Um, if my kind of advice on that is that if you're willing to potentially get a disqualification, but they're the shoes you want to use, then that's up to you. However, I would probably always err on the side of caution with anything. And I'd always think it's always better to be safe than sorry. And there's rules set out there. If you agree or disagree with them, that's a different question. But I would always try and stay within the rules as much as you can.
Cool. If we do run out of time as well, guys, just chuck it in the WhatsApp group. Myself or Andy will answer it as much as we can as well. So before we sign off, guys, any other questions at all? But we got a couple of minutes. Do you have to wear your bike shoes from the change tent, or can you carry them to the bike?
This is a good question because it actually varies from region to region and also country to country. So that's actually a British triathlon question. So I believe in the UK you can't do that. So I believe you have to put them on and then walk to your bike wearing them, or you have to have them pre-mounted on your bike. I don't think you can walk and then put them on next to your bike. However, that specific question, either look at the British Triathlon handbook or ask the officials. There should be a couple of officials floating around when you're racking your bikes on transition day.
Cool. We've just been fact checked by Mark as well. Fact
Good
checked
luck.
by Mr. Barrow. He knows his stuff. Cool. Okay, guys, we're going to sign it off there. If you do have any other questions, please just chuck it in the group and we'll get back to you as soon as you can. Thank you for joining. We will probably do one of these for Wales as well. Just keep in touch and any questions, please let me know. Do you want to say anything, Anne, before we sign off?
No, no, perfect. Yeah, obviously, chuck a question in the chat. If there's something much more like personal and specific, then please drop either Ollie or myself a message privately. We're always obviously always happy to help. So just yeah, please get in contact.
There's one question here, and we got 2 minutes. It's from Matt.
Yep,
I've got a Nirvana package, which will Nirvana package place and priority racking. Will that be at the front of the tent? Do you know anything about that?
there'll be a separate sign-in thing. You'll probably be in the. They normally put them with the pro registration line, but they'll talk you through it. And I think you get like the crazy low numbers, and yeah, there's some good perks for sure.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you, guys. Any questions, chuck it in the group, okay?
Cheers. Have a good one, guys.
Peace out, guys. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
I'm just gonna stop the share and save the recording.